Hey, how you guys doing? So this is Neil from masterpaintnow.com bringing you another free art lesson. I'm one of the top art instructors on Udemy with over 30,000 happy students, all growing and learning. So grow with us. All right, let's get started. All right, hey, how you doing? So I thought in this video I'd go ahead and show you guys how to do proper skin tones that don't look muddy. I remember when I first started digital painting and painting in general, that I was like, why do my skin tones look like mud or look like, I don't know, like clay or something? And it all has to do with color. So I want to show you, if you look really closely at these women here, they almost look like photographs, kind of, like photographs pasted in or something. But if you look closely, we'll zoom in on here, they don't even have faces, right? Because it's far away, we don't need to see that kind of detail. But look at the skin tone. It looks really nice and natural to where they look like it could be a photograph. But the colors I'm using are right here. So that's the colors for her and for her. So basically we have this mid-tone color. It's kind of an orange color, and for her it's a mid-tone color too. No, it's almost the exact same, it's just a little bit darker. For this kind of more gray color, and by the way, this just show that this is the color on there, right there, bam. See, that's all her shadow color. She has 3 colors. That's it. That's all I painted her with, 3 colors. I didn't blend them together or anything. They're just boom, very basic shapes. And so for the shadow shapes, it's this color here, which is kind of going toward the purplish part of red, or maybe you can call it the fuchsia part of red, but because it is muted, it has this kind of purpley color. This is the same thing, but it's just darker. And then the highlight I have going toward the warm, going toward yellow, and it's up here, and it's pretty white. And then this one is not quite as yellow, and it's more desaturated because she was more in the water. But yeah, so, and I'll zoom in even more so you can really get an idea. It's going to start pixelizing, but anyway, good idea, right? So we can see those are the 3 colors I used, and they work awesomely. So here's the common mistake that people make. So let's go through one of the most common mistakes people make when they're painting skin. So here's some skin balls, and this is really good practice. I did this in Art Rage, actually. Kind of a cool program, Art Rage 5. So this is the most common problem right here. It looks kind of muddy. It looks kind of like it's just kind of blah. And if you look at the colors, they're all in the same part on the color wheel. So the common mistake that people do is they'll take a skin tone, right? They'll find some skin tone online or something like that. A lot of these skin tones, and actually some of the skin tones online aren't too bad, but let's say they kind of go with the, somewhat of an orangey, peachy color. Let's say they want their mid-tone to be something around like this, whatever their mid-tone is, right? And they paint that mid-tone in. Now after they had their mid-tone, they're like, oh, okay, now I need a highlight. They'll just take the same color and go up. And like, okay, that's my highlight. Now this works great for cloth, by the way. This is basically what happens to cloth. And then they go down and they're like, that's my shadow. And they're wondering, well, why does this look so muddy? It's because it is muddy, right? These colors don't blend well together. There's also the terminator, and that's a really important aspect to proper skin tones. So if that's all you do, you're not going to get good realistic skin tones. It'll look really weird, like this, kind of just muddy. Now, if we take that same mid-tone here, now we're going to kind of change things up a little bit. Another common mistake they make is they'll go really white. They'll add white, just straight white here for the highlight, and they'll just kind of blend that in. And then they'll add just pure black for the shadow. This isn't as common, but for some like really beginners, it's pretty common. And you get something that just looks absolutely horrible, like so. That's not what you want to do either. So what do you do? Well, you got to think about skin. Well, one thing, skin it has a translucency to it. And it also depends on the color of the lights around you. So right now, hopefully I'm in this view thing. Right now the color lights around me are are kind of warmer lights, and also I have my camera settings to be kind of warmer, so therefore I look kind of warmer, and that's why my skin's that color. But anyway, skin is translucent, meaning that some of the light, as it bounces around into the skin, some light bounces off the skin and back into your eye, so you're getting some white with whatever your actual base color is. So your base color is, and then because of the translucency, it's bouncing into you. Some of it, and you have some reflectivity as well, some of it's bouncing off you, so you have some pure white coming at you. You also have the skin tone coming at you, which is why you get that midtone. So we're going to go ahead and lay in the midtone here. Right, so we have this midtone. This is caused from the white light, and believe it or not, that has a lot of blue in it. Like if you wanted to make a midtone with actual paints, what I do is I start with pure yellow, pure red, mix those together about half and half, add some white into it till it's the lightness I want it. Then I add a little bit of blue at a time until it desaturates it to where I want it. That's pretty much it. You can do the same thing in an art program as well. But why when you just go like this? Basically by taking that pure orange color, which is between red and yellow, that's already mixing red and yellow together. By moving it this way, we're desaturating it, which is basically adding blue. Okay, so after we have this color in here, we got to think about, well, what happens to skin tone? We know that for the direct light, when the direct light hits it, more white light's going to come at us. So we need to go not just up, but also to the left. So we're going to go up a little bit and then to the left. And the reason why we're going to do that is because the skin is slightly reflective, which means more white light will bounce off and mix with the skin tone. The other thing that's happen is usually it gets warmer, right? And so as light penetrates into the skin, it picks up some of the undercolors of your muscle tissue, like the blood and stuff. And it picks up some of that and it comes through, because it actually can penetrate through the skin. And it comes through, that is we're slightly translucent. And this picks up a lot around our lips, around the nose, around the elbow, like where the skin is more like your knuckles, where the skin is more thin around your nostrils right here, the light can really penetrate through easy, and especially like your tips of your fingers when there's light backlit behind it, and your ears when they're backlit. And so you can actually see that blood coming through a lot more. That's that translucency. So then we're going to go and make it warmer. Now, I'm just going to go a little bit more toward the yellow. This is a general rule. As a general rule, this works really well. And we're going to add that highlight in there now. Well, not highlight, but direct light. I like to add in like this, a very light pressure. Add in where my main, with, you know, that's about where it's going to be. And then I'll push a little bit harder. And sometimes I'll go a little bit brighter and just add that brighter part in there. You can also get overexposure, you know, where the light's hitting really strongly. All right, so the next thing is that the shadow. So a lot of people think about shadows. There's two different ways you can handle shadows. The way that I did in that painting, which is a very desaturated shadow, or a more saturated shadow. Now, desaturated shadow would be taking the base color again, going down, and then make it a little bit warmer on the scale. We're going to go toward or actually a little bit cooler, because we're going toward the cool colors. And then to either the left or to the right. Now, if you go to the left, this is the look that I had in the other painting I just showed you. That's going to give you a desaturated color. And you don't have to go to the left very much. It's going to make it look almost purple. Even though that's not purple, it's a red color, but I know that when you desaturate it, it looks purple. Alright, so that's one type of skin you can use. Now when I do this, I would take my midtone, I would make it sometimes even more orange. I'm going to leave some texture in there. That's one thing you can do. Now another thing you can do is everything's the same, and I'm going to talk about the terminator and stuff in a second. That is the actual terminator of where the light turns into shadow, or the shadow starts turning into midtone, I should say. Add just a little bit of texture back in there. And then for the, we're going to go down on the, or down left, so toward the cool, and we're going to go down and then right. This is more saturated. Now, you might be saying, well, the thing is, black is just as desaturated as white. Because remember, black and white are desaturation. That is, saturation is pure color, and black and white is not color. So the most desaturated you can get is pure black or pure white or anything in between. In other words, anything on this side of the scale from pure white to black and gray in between, this is all desaturated, no color at all. So as we move to the left hand side of this square, we're completely desaturated. As we move to the right hand side, we are saturated. But the problem is, as we go toward this top here, okay, that's fully saturated right there. As we move to the left, we're getting less and less saturated. Why? Because it's becoming more and more white. More and more direct light is coming into our eyes. If this way though, and we go down the scale, it gets more and more dark until there's no light and you eventually get pure black. Now here's the way I like to teach it and think about it, because it really makes it make a lot of sense. If you think of black as an actual color, not just absent of light, but an actual light itself, or something that's coming at you, then I think it makes it easier to understand this point I'm about to make. The reason why shadows are more saturated, now midtones are typically right about here. Like that's going to be your midtone. Right, that'd be a darker midtone, but that's going to be your midtone basically. Anything that means it has a lot of black and white in it, right? Because remember, it's right here in the center, and the color's up here, so it's going toward the black and the white. So it has a lot of black and white. In other words, gray. There's a lot of gray in that color, meaning it's very desaturated. There's not a lot of color there. So midtones are actually very, very desaturated. Highlights and direct light colors like this here, this is a very desaturated color because it has a lot of light in it. That is, the closer you get toward white or black, the more desaturated. However, shadows like this shadow here, if I pick that up, you'll see it's more toward the right here. That has more color in it, and the reason why, think about it this way, white is all color together. And when all color comes and bounces off an object and hits you, that's a highlight. So highlight is different direct light. Direct light is where the light picks up a lot of the color and it comes back at you, but it doesn't bleach it out completely. A highlight was for something so reflective that almost the pure color, whatever the color of the light is, that pure light bounces back on you. Now you can really see this prevalent in like shiny plastic. So if you take a plastic, like, I'm trying to think of something that's a very shiny plastic. The PS4 is actually not shiny. The PS3 was, part of it at least. Anyway, I have a black speaker over there. So just think of something that's a shiny plastic, and when the light's hitting it just right, and it bounces off at the right angle, even though it's black, the part where the light's hitting it looks almost pure white, because that's the reflective light coming back at you. In other words, it's not picking up hardly any of the color because it's almost a reflective surface, and all you're seeing is that pure light hitting your eyes. So let's say outside is about 5,000 K cool light. It's not quite warm, not quite cool. It's almost right in that pure white color, and so but the sun always looks more warm. The light, when it lands on things, makes it look warmer. Anyway, so that light comes and bounces off the object. Now the Cintiq here, it has a pretty, right, I don't know if you can see this on the camera, but right here it has a pretty reflective surface, and so when the light's hitting this, I'm almost getting the pure light color, but because it is a little bit coarse, it's not so smooth, it does allow some of the black to come through as well, or absorbing a lot of that light. And so if you think about black, then what's the difference between here and here? They're pretty much the same thing, right? Like, what's the difference between that color as far as saturation and this color? You would think they'd be the same, but which one looks more saturated to you? Which one looks more colorful? The dark one. And here's why. Because when you have the pure color, right? So when we have this is the pure color I'm dealing with here. When we have that pure color, and then you start to add white to it to make it brighter, you're getting pure white, that is the actual light itself coming into your eyes. So you're seeing hardly any of the color at all. But when you have the black, yeah, you're seeing hardly any of the color at all, but it's not being washed out by the light. The way I like to think about this is, sorry, I was looking at this, I got a message. Is this, so this is a complex thing to describe just right, and I want to get it right. So think about when light hits an object and it bleaches it out. That is, you're getting mostly that pure white coming back into your eye. So that we're outside, 5000 K light comes down, hits the object, bounces off the object, and goes into our eyes. So now what we're seeing is almost pure light. We're hardly seeing any of the color at all of the object. Now, that's not scientifically what happens anyway. Scientifically what happens is the photons have all the colors of light in it. The object absorbs some of those photons and reflects some of those photons, or absorbs some of those wavelengths and reflects some of those wavelengths. And the wavelengths in the mixture that's reflected back in our eyes is the color that we see. But let's not think about it that way. Think about it as an artist point of view, as the thing actually has real color. And it's picking up some of that color and a lot of that pure white light and then bouncing into our eyes. But when you're in pure shadow, that is pure black, no light is there. Right? So no light is coming there. So what you're getting is the pure color is coming at you. Yeah, it's darkened because there's hardly any light reaching it, but that's the difference. So on this top bar here, when we go across like this, we have the pure color, and we'll go right in the middle. And then we're going to go all the way to the left, just about where it's white. What happens here is we're getting a bunch of white light mixing with the color. It's bleaching it out. So you have color and white mixed together. With the black, there's no light mixed with it. It's the absence of light. So it is still the pure color, but it's just the pure color being darkened. You can think, oh, it's a pure color being lightened. Yeah, but that's like actual light. Whereas the dark, the shadow, as we take this color and then we come down, and then we come all the way down to black, what happens, this right here looks so saturated because, versus if we go over here, we add white to it, if we add white and black to it, as if we go this way with it, we're adding white and black to it. And we come over this side, watch how different these two colors, let's just go right about here. So let's make that color, which looks almost gray, we'll make it add a little more color to it, and we'll go to this side over here. Look at the difference there. One looks way more colorful. Now let's go right here in about the middle, and then we'll come all the way over here, and look at that. One looks almost gray, and the other one looks like it has tons of color to it. Because one has a bunch of white added to it as well, right? That is, it's a dark gray added to it. So the more white you add to something, the way more desaturated it looks. You can add a bunch of black to something, and it still looks very colorful. That is, it still looks very saturated. I'm sorry to take so long with that, but it's a really important concept. Why shadows appear to be so saturated. It's not that they actually are. They just appear that way because there's no light bleaching out the color. It's just pure color, but it's being darkened. Hopefully that kind of makes sense. Okay. So notice how these two here, whether I have the more desaturated shadow or the more saturated shadow, they both look a lot more lively and skin tone like. They don't look like these. They don't look like clay. They don't look so weird and like clay or mud or something. These have a lot more life to them. Now we can add even more life to them by adding more color. Skin has a lot of color tones to it, especially in the face. Right, so skin also has a lot more colors than just than just this in it. So we got like a lot of pinks that happen, a lot of more yellows tints that happen in certain parts. So like where you are near thin skin, like the tips of the knuckles and stuff like that, where it's more thin skin and around the tips of the fingers, you're going to get more like pinkish, and like around like the elbow area, around the nose, the ears, a little bit in the cheek area, around the eyes. You'll get more of those pink or more red tones because the skin's thinner, and so the light's able to penetrate through it and bring that red. It brings the red from underneath your skin out. And that is, think about the photons penetrating through your skin, and the thinner the skin is, the more of that red blood that red color they can bring out, and that's why to the surface. So where there's thin skin. Other parts though look more yellow, like where there's more meat and stuff like that, can have more of a yellow tint. There's also desaturated colors. There's so many colors in skin, and adding all those variety colors really will make your painting pop out, or make your picture pop out if you're going for more of that artistic look, or that painterly look, or you're going for that realism look. Very subtle, but they're there, and there's a whole bunch of colors there. And it's hard to see with the color picker. If you just, and a lot of photographs are just, the way the colors are changed. So you want to take a picture of yourself. But even then, as you color picker with yourself, the color picker has a hard time seeing these individual colors. So you got to train your eye to be able to see them. And like in a man, you'll see more like a desaturated, like blue-gray into the beard area when they have 5 o'clock shadow. You might see a little more yellow up in the forehead area, things like that. So that's something to keep in mind. All right, now let's talk about the Terminator really fast. This part's really important. So where the shadow is meeting and rolling over to the light, so wherever you have a shadow, and you probably see some, and they roll over to the midtone, that right where that shadow pulls over, you want to have a more saturated color. Now, I highly recommend, especially if you're working with paints, is real paints. Whenever you're having a shadow turn over, no matter what the object is, always take a more pure color. That is, a color that doesn't have like black or white in it, or gray, that is the opposite. So if you're using like kind of a blue color, and then let's say I want to make kind of a black color, typically I'll mix my ultramarine blue with my burnt umber. And when I mix those two together, I get a nice, good quality black in my paintings. If I paint with that color though, it's got kind of, and it depends which one it leans to, it has both those colors that neutralize each other and kind of gray each other out. So I get kind of either more of a cooler gray black or more of a warmer gray black. So if I mix white with it, I can tell whether my black is a cooler gray, neutral gray, or a warmer gray. It doesn't matter. The fact is though, that when that mixes with another color, it's going to kind of gray it out most all the time. And so what you want to do is, as you have that black color, let's say I have this, let's say it's more of a warmer black color. As I have this black color, and then I want it to blend into, I don't know, let's say this color up here, and this is the color I want it to blend into. Don't just blend those two colors together. Right? So if you're working with paint, you want to just want to take your blender brush and blend those two colors together. You want a color in between. And so in this case, I want to use a smaller brush. If this was real life, I would take a warmer, more saturated color that's kind of like part of, basically I would take whatever color I'm going to blend into, I would take that color, and if I'm working with real paints, I would just add a little bit of it. It depends whether it's a cool color, warm color, but I would either add a little bit of blue to it or a little bit of red to it to kind of warm it up or cool it up. And then that's to make it more saturated by adding pure color to it. In this case, on the color wheel, I'm just going to warm this up a little bit, especially if I know my shadow color. But it doesn't really matter. This is the Terminator. So you just add this little line of paint. I'm going to make that a little bit darker and more saturated. Little line of paint right here. And that's going to blend into the shadow and blend into the color. Don't just blend it all together. Carefully take this color and blend it into the shadow like that, and then blend it into your midtone. So it's acting like an in-between. You don't just blend it all together. It blends into both of them, and hopefully you can see that. The same thing happens in the skin. Wherever a shadow is rolling over to the midtone, take the color of the shadow, go to the right, just make it more saturated, more colorful. Add just a thin line where that shadow is going to meet the midtone, and then blend it up into, blend that color up into the midtone and blend it down into the shadow. You can see this on non-doctored photos. If you look very closely where the shadow and zoom in on it, you can usually pick it up and see it's a little bit more saturated. And same thing here. Now here I don't have to get too much more saturated, just a little bit more saturated, because this is a very desaturated shadow. And if I go too saturated, I'm just going to blend down and I'm going to blend up. So I'm blending it into the midtone and I'm blending it down into the shadow. Just that trick alone is going to bring the quality of your skin tones everywhere up quite a bit. Now the other thing about skin tones is that, like I said, there's a variety of skin tones all over the place, and you can't just you can just take these 3 skin tones and you can paint something with them. I can go, okay, here's my midtone, and I'm going to go ahead and drop that in there. It's going to make my brush a little bit bigger. Got my midtone, got my highlight, and I can just put these 3 colors like I just showed you in that painting. It worked just great. And then I have my shadow, boom, like that. And that's all I got to do. And then I don't have to do the trimming or nothing like that because it's small and it actually looks good. And as you can see, as I showed you on these women, they look good. Look at that. They look like photos. Like they look like they could be a photo. And so those kinds of predetermined skin tones can work, but you got to think about the colors. I thought about my environment that they're in. I have a lot of purple shadows and stuff like that, and that's why I made them this color. I have a lot of warm tones everywhere, and so I added their midtone is more warmer. And then the sunlight is beaming everywhere, and so the sun's hitting them, which is a warm, kind of more bleached out light. So I gave thought to that, and that's why I did those light. So you got to think about, well, what's the environment the skin's in? Because right now, look at my skin looks very orange and stuff right now because of the environment I'm in and due to the camera settings. And if I were in a cooler light, I would look a lot different color. If I were in a supermarket, I would look different. I would look a lot more whiter and a lot more cooler in colors. If I were under stage lighting that had some yellows and blues in it, or I was in a rave and I was in the lit up part of the room that looks more like natural light, but over here there's like a blue light or something that's hitting part of me. That's going to change. You got to think about all this kind of stuff. It changes the skin tone. All right, so the next thing is adding variety of color. And when you add variety of color, add saturated color. Now notice how when I took red, I just want to show you some things here. This is important stuff to understand when it comes to color, and especially skin color. You have a kind of your midtone. Now when I pull this toward the warm, like it's really red, but watch, all I do is if I just desaturate that and add it on there, what color does that look like? It looks nothing like red. It looks like purple. And it's important to understand that take desaturated colors and put them on top of other colors and see what you get and what it looks like. So let's say you had like a midtone blue, then you have that red and you want to desaturate it. Notice it looks more red. It doesn't look as purple. So the way that colors interact with other colors sometimes can be deceiving to the eye. And so for green, you often only have to slightly shift it. So if you're working with a skin tone like this, and I want to add just a little bit of green to it, I would just go toward green. That is, it's still going to be yellow. And I'm just going to desaturate it. And when I add this on there, look how green that looks. I'm going to make it really, really bright. Look how green that looks. But it's not green at all. It's actually, I'm trying to get the camera to where you can, I guess that's a little bit better. Anyway, it's not green at all. It's actually yellow. It's just a desaturated yellow. And as you can see here, that's clearly yellow. So take colors, a bunch of different colors, and desaturate them. One thing I like to do, I like to just go to a desaturation that works, and I'm like, okay, how does that look on my skin? Okay, I'm like, yeah, that looks pretty good. Maybe a little bit brighter. You know, it depends on the value I want. And I'm like, yeah, that looks good. Okay. Then I just go around my color wheel and I add some of these different grays. So I'll have this kind of gray, this kind of gray, this kind of gray, go more toward the yellow, a little bit more toward the green, and maybe blue, maybe down here, right? And I have all these different gray tones. Now, next to the white, they look quite bright, but let's go ahead and make a new layer here. Put it underneath. Boom. And we'll take that skin tone. Well, I forgot that it blends in with the white. But anyway, I'll have to redo each color really fast here. Right? So they're still pretty colorful, but not as colorful as they were. So you can take a midtone like this, and whatever midtone you're working with, and then just take a color like toward green but still yellow, and make sure it's the value that you want it. You want it to be almost the same value to where it looks a little bit greenish, and you're going to add that little places here and there. And then go ahead and go toward that color, go a little bit down further. Now you're starting to get these different grays, and you can go ahead and color pick those and drop those in different parts of the skin. So I'm going to grab this color, for example, and I'm going to go ahead and drop this into the skin. I'm just making sure that you guys can still see, right? Just a little bit right there. So let's say that's part of, I don't know, an edge of a cheek or something. And then I'm going to take this more purple color over here, and let's say this is more toward a beard or something like that. And I'm going to kind of loosen that up by adding my skin tone right back over it again. And even in the highlight, you can take the highlight color and kind of change it and add some different lights into there, just different colors of light. A little bit of pink right there, that can be next to the inside of the eye or something like that. And as you do that, the whole entire thing starts looking more. You can take your shadow color and just roll around, just rock around the ring, just pick another color, and we'll add a little bit of that color into the shadow. In this case, I'll probably keep it the same value but coming straight across, but just gray it up a little bit, and then take the other color and go right over it, and just kind of blend it in a little bit like that. And I'm gonna go a little bit more gray. Usually, you always want to desaturate when you add all these other colors. I'm gonna come back here and add my original color back in here a little bit more. But just the subtle little changes. Let's go take this color and let's go to desaturated, go toward yellow, and just add just a little bit in there like that. Maybe come down because we did go to yellow. Sometimes you got to think about what color is naturally brighter. Like, okay, yellow, for example, is naturally lighter than red. Even though these are both pure colors, when we turn that to black and white, this is darker than that. So you got to think about the values of pure color. So yellow, and anything with a lot of yellow in it, is going to be a more, on the value scale when it's converted to black and white, is going to be a lighter color. Whereas anything that's like over here, the red, purple, and blue, and so like the yellow, green, and cyan, these are going to be lighter in value colors. The red, purple, and blue, these are going to be darker in value colors. And so if I'm starting with a red color, let's say my red shadow, something like this, or let's just go with let's pick my shadow color. I'm starting with this color here. It's more red. I know it's already on the darker side. If I come across here, I'm like, okay, I want to use a desaturated version. I can just do a desaturated version of that color. But let's say I wanted to add a desaturated version of a different color, a lighter color value, more toward the yellow. Now the value's gone up, so I got to go down. I have to make my value go down. Because if I don't do that, so I'm trying to, it's really hard to paint like this, so I'm trying to help you guys see it. I don't even know if this is really, if it's, I kind of just wanted to do a few videos like this because I wanted people to see that digital painting is painting. You know, it's still, you know, it's a different kind of painting, but yeah, it's still, my point is that it's still, you're still drawing on a screen. And if you have a tablet, it's even harder because then you're looking at a screen and you're drawing over here like this, you know. So here's a screen and you're drawing on a pad It's like a mouse, like using your mouse and you're looking at the TV and you're looking at the screen and you're using a mouse like this. That's hard. I did that for years and it took me quite a while to get used to that. The second I used the screen like this, it was like so easier. I was like, wow. And I guarantee if you go from traditional to digital and you use a screen to draw on, the transition is going to be much faster. Within 2.0s, actually I started way back when Wacom had what it was called a Grassfire. And when I first used it, oh man, it was just horrible. My work was so bad and my lines were horrible. It took a long time to get used to that, at least a year. And then by the time I mastered it, I got one of these and it was like, boom. I was like, I wish I would have started with one of these. The transition to digital would have been so much faster. Now they got the Huion tablets you can draw on. They got one called like Gaemon or something like that. Can't remember how it's pronounced, but it's like under $500. And it's a lot bigger than this one. This is only 13 inches. But I like it. I kind of like the small, portable kind of feel I can have on my lap and draw. Bigger ones, it's kind of harder to do that with. But yeah, for the price, absolutely amazing. Unfortunately, I only have that one size right now. Awesome press sensitivity and everything. So it's a good tablet and you can get it for such a good deal. So yeah, if you can afford something like that, absolutely recommend it. So anyway, using these principles, you can really get really nice look. Look how artistic this looks now. And all I did is added a little bit of gray tones. I added that Terminator transition color. And look how much more lively it looks in that one up there. And I can do the same thing with this one. I can start adding all these different tones, everything like that. And so yeah, just stay away from this here. This is mud, and that's how you stay away from it, by adding different colors. And be like maybe even more crazy with your colors. You know, colors you can get really crazy with. And what matters the most is values. If you get the values right, and that's why those women look so realistic, even though there's hardly any details, because I got the values right. I made sure that, you know, I capture the most important values of the structure of their form so that from a distance it reads like a photo. But up close you can go, whoa, there's not even a face there. So yeah, anyway, got to know what details that need to be there, and it's all about value. So study value, do a lot of black and white because that's how you learn value, and light and dark and things like that. And then when you get that down and understand how to paint bodies or faces, whatever we're trying to paint, in this case skin, so you're going to be drawing some sort of either a figure or a face or something, then get it in black and white, and then think about color after you've got good at black and white. And when you add color, just go crazy with color. Like don't be afraid to use all different kinds of colors, but stay on the desaturated side. Stay on this side of the color wheel, or this side, in this case it's not the color wheel but the color square or whatever. Stay on this side, stay on the desaturated, or this whole angle right here. So stay away from this corner. Anything that goes that way or that way, like that section there, that's the section you want to stay away from. You want to stay over in this section here. The reason why is because you can add a lot of life to a painting with a lot of desaturated color, and then when you pop a little bit of color, that color pops a lot more because of the desaturation. I mean, look how much this color here pops. This color it's not that saturated, but it pops so much because I have this more desaturated shadow. And if I were to use like a desaturated shadow like this here, it's going to pop even more. I'm going to throw this in here. This would be very unrealistic, but maybe not. It depends on the lighting situation. But look how lively that looks now. And I can take this and go even more yellow, and this would be like a part of the skin that's blowing out from the light's hitting it so strongly it's overexposed. I like adding overexposed areas. I added it to both of those women, mainly to the one up on the top, and that already starts to add more life to it. We can add some overexposure. Oops. Overexposure to this one as well. It's kind of coming down like this. Maybe all that part right there got overexposed. That's the shape that got overexposed. But yeah, you can just see how, and it's no longer a ball now. We're just kind of dealing with some sort of shape here. But yeah, anyway, I highly recommend just be very experimental with colors. Don't be afraid to experiment with the colors. Use all different kinds of colors, and you're going to get a lot of different kinds of skin tones. Just keep the basic rule in mind that start with your basic skin tone. So let's say we want to do a darker person. I like using kind of a going more toward the purple and something like this for my base tone. So this right here might be my base color. And then I'm gonna go more toward, I like using more desaturated shadows for certain parts of the body or face, and then other parts would be more saturated. And then I'm going to take that same color and we're going to make it more saturated. And this is going to be that Terminator line here, where I'm going to use that color to come up into the midtone, and also to go down into the shadow. And we'll just kind of, there we go. And for the highlight, I don't like to warm it up too much, but just a little bit. That's too light. That'd be like where, not highlight, but direct light. Maybe even a little bit more saturated. There we go. And you can't just leave it like this. Like, you gotta add so much more color. You add colors to different places here and there. For example, we might go a little bit more, make this a little bit lighter. For this would be just one little spot. Let's say that's just some little part where the light hit more. You get more, a little bit overexposure there. In this area right here, I'm going to take that, I'm just going to desaturate it. Same exact color, just desaturate it. Then I might go ahead and go more toward the purple. Desaturate it. Now I'm going to go into the shadows here. I'm going to go a lot more purple. I'm going to add just a little bit in here. I'm going to kind of lighten it up. This will be like a reflected light, just very lightly hitting there. I'll go just straight blue. Kind of add some blue right in here. I'm going to go a little bit lighter, like up here. Maybe more grayish. Doesn't take much to make it look like color. And then I'm going to go back over it so it's not too much. And you just add these colors here and there throughout the skin, depending on what part of the body it's on. And you're going to get this very lively looking. Kind of tone that down a little bit. Right? That's a really dark person. At least where the shadow is at, it's really dark. That shadow is like where hardly any light's hitting. Like, so you can't see. You're looking at this. This part, that's more of like the main part of the body, the main part of the figure. This would be reserved for like really dark place where light really isn't reaching. All right, hopefully that helps and gives you some ideas about color theory as applied to skin tones. There's a lot more to it, but if you just stick to those basic rules, your skin will look so much cooler. And even in comic books, I like to do this. So with comic books, for example, if I was doing a comic book, and let's say I was doing some sort of cell shading, so I'm not doing really any blending hardly, I'm using like a hard brush or something, I might use these. And also, I wanted to go through this really fast. Notice how much green is in this one here. How much desaturated colors are in it. You know, study masters, study people like Rembrandt. You got to get a close-up though. You can't just study it from a small photo. You have to go and get a big photo. So with Rembrandt, if you go to Wikipedia and go to Rembrandt's Wikipedia page, famous artist, one of my favorite artists of old time, and there's a self-portrait of him. If you click on that, on the Wikipedia page, it'll actually open up another page. Click on it again, and it'll be so big you can't even see anything. But that right there, zoom in and look around, or copy that and put it into your paint program. Zoom in and out, and look at the texture. So much texture is just awesome. But look at the different, and so from a distance it looks so realistic. Well, not really photorealistic. It has a more artistic look to it, but it looks really cool. But it looks realistic though. It's realism, but it's not photorealism. But as you zoom in, you're like, whoa, that's kind of ugly, but it's kind of cool looking because you see all these different colors. Just look at all the colors he uses in the face. He uses so many colors in the face, it's ridiculous. And a lot of those are very desaturated colors. So study Master, study Sargent. If you can get a big picture of Sargent. Like it needs to be big enough where you can see the brush strokes. And look and study. Look at all the colors he puts into skin. All great artists do this. So if I was going to do, oh yeah, Rubella is awesome, by the way, or Rubella. I'm not sure how it's said. Rubella 3. It does acrylic / oil really well, and watercolors. I'm going to just show you this really quick. Look at that. Doesn't that look like watercolor? This is a really quick. This is the first time I ever used the program. Look at that. It does drips and everything. Really cool. It's really cool. I'll have to show this program. If you're interested in see how to use the watercolors, because I'm a watercolor artist as well, like with traditionally, and I can actually show you really fast here if you get. So more realistic type colors and stuff, and this one very symbolic, and you can see like I like that like look you get back there. I like the look on the water as well. It's pretty cool. But yeah, anyway, so watercolor is really fun. This is, like I said, different kind of style of watercolor, but and I want to show you that bob. So that was the one I did from. I made it a little bit too square because when I first started watching it, his canvas looked square, and then as he did a different angle, I'm like, oh, it looks a little more rectangle, vertical. But yeah, so I'll probably redo it anyways, and I think that people will dig that type of series. And then for those that want to get more into detail with it, I do have that 1 2-hour video that shows all how to use the brushes. But those that want like a full course on, I might actually do a full course on how to paint like Bob Ross digitally. And what's really cool, it ends up looking a lot like, the traditional, especially like how it breaks and stuff. How you see the break and looks really cool. Very, very close. I like it. And this one was actually a lot more yellow. I thought he said to use like sap green and yellow, and at first the camera angle it looked like it was a lot greener, and then as the different camera angle got on it, this was his first episode, so he didn't have like everything down yet. And it was like, oh wait, that's a lot more yellow than I thought it was. So it's a lot more brownish yellow painting. So that's good to know. So I'm kind of almost glad that the video got destroyed. That way I can do another one. But all right, okay. I think I've talked long enough now. Until next time. Let's just try this real fast. More of an oily brush, and make sure that dirty mode's on, preserve color. Actually, I'm going to just leave it right on dirty. Now add a little bit of blue to that. Kind of blend that out a little bit. We'll add some pure yellow to this. Blend all that together. A little bit of yellow. And then we'll add a little bit of white to lighten it up. Now I'm going to try that blender tool now. There we go. It's starting to look a little more like how paint works a little bit now. That's pretty close, not quite. That's still pretty saturated. Let's add a little bit of blue white back in there. Like I would add a little bit of blue and white paint on there and use that same brush and just kind of blend that in there a little bit. This should desaturate it. It is starting to desaturate it. Looks a little bit, actually, that's getting pretty close. And then I would add maybe a little bit more yellow. And it does an okay job. That's not quite the color I would get if I was using paints, but whatever. Maybe let's add a little bit of burnt sienna. See if that'll fix it, because that's another color I add to my skin. And that might actually do the trick. That's actually pretty close right there. Look at that. That's a pretty good, nice skin tone. As a base skin tone, it's just covered all up real fast. That's pretty nice right there, I would say. I'm just kind of messing around now, guys. You could have stopped watching a long time ago. This is like the camera should have been off behind the scenes thing. But anyway, so yeah, it did work. That's pretty cool. You just have to set the settings right. But yeah, so yeah, newsletter, Facebook, whatever. Follow me. Check it out. Forgot what else I was gonna say. So okay. Oh yeah, the Bob Ross thing. Sorry, I was gonna show you guys that really fast. So I had recorded